Right when I got to Australia, I was thrown a little bit off. It turned out that they are 24 hours ahead of us. Exactly. They're one day ahead, but 24 hours ahead, which made it very easy to know what time it was. You know, like if I wanted to call my family or call back home, I don't have to worry about calling them at 3 in the morning because it's noon where I am. 24 hours off. So I get in, and I get in about 8 p.m. And as we're going up to our rooms, I even said to Gilbert, I said, well, good night. You know, he said, hey, you want to go out? You want to do something? I think we wanted to get dinner. And I said, no, not as late as it is. And I must tell you, we were going to go fishing the next morning. I'm not a big fisherman. The great fishing trip is lined up out there. We've got a 4:15 call time in the lobby to make it out to the water to get our fishing going. So I get up to the room, and I got to pull the drapes. It, stays really light, really late in Australia. So I get to the room. I order a quick bite. Food comes, I eat the food, I brush my teeth, I take my clothes off, I get into bed. And now it's about 9 o'clock, 9:15 p.m. even, and I turn my head, when I'm in bed, I'm under the cover, I'm not tired, but what am I going to do? I got to get some sleep for this 4 a.m. fishing time. Good night to adjust, right? So I turn my head, and there happens to be a clock on the nightstand that tells me it's 2 o'clock. Going, 2 o'clock? I wonder why this phone is so off. Or I wonder why this clock is so off. So I grab my phone. No, sure enough, it's 9 p.m. Well, I realized for reasons unknown to me that my iPhone, which I take everywhere and always adjusts to the current time, never adjusted. It was still telling me what time it was in Portland, which was 9 p.m. It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So the first thing I do, I call Gilbert. I say, hey, Gilbert, what time do you think it is? He said, 2 o'clock. What time do you think it is? I said, I think it's 9 o'clock because my phone says 9 o'clock. I said, I told you good night. Why didn't you say something when I told you good night? He goes, I thought it was a weird thing to say. I thought you were just trying to make a joke. I was surprised you didn't want to go out and do something. It's only 2 o'clock. At any rate, I called home. I told Joel this story. He thought it was a very good story. So I'm sharing it with you guys, but I had a couple of other interesting things happen while I was in Australia. One, I had dinner with Cowboy. And we have dinner at Nobu. Now, Nobu is a very well-known sushi restaurant. We don't have any of them in Portland where I live. I've only been to one. It was in Las Vegas. I think it's Caesar's Palace. It was a number of years ago that I went. It was absolutely delicious. So when I got invited to this dinner, I'm in. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll meet you. No, so I go to Nobu, and there's a whole table full of people, and there's one empty spot. I sit down. Now there's one empty spot left, and I'm told that's Cerrone's spot if Cerrone comes. And the folks that I was going to dinner with had done a number of dinners with Cowboy, and sometimes he shows and sometimes he doesn't. Apparently, that is what he is known for. So we order, and the way you order there, it's 8 courses, and the chef picks. The chef picks, and he brings it out in whatever order he chooses. So we're 5 courses in to an 8-course meal when Cowboy Cerrone comes walking down the stairs. We know he's walking down the stairs because he yelled something out that made the entire restaurant look. Now, you do have to understand, this is a very nice restaurant, okay? Most people are in shirt and tie. At the very least, people are in nice shirts and the women are in dresses. I mean, it's an event. You dress up for it. It's a 2 or 3 hour experience. The check's going to be heavy when it comes. It's just one of these deals. Cowboy comes walking down the stairs, clearly intoxicated and dressed in shorts and Reeboks and a tank top. So, and brings attention to himself the moment that he comes in. So he has a seat at the table, and he starts right in. And the first thing he needs to know from the waitress, who he referred to as barmaid, hey, barmaid, where's the luge? Now, luge means bathroom, but they don't even call it a bathroom in Australia. Even though they speak English, you would be shocked at the language barrier. They only know it as a toilet. So he's telling the barmaid he needs the luge. And when she doesn't pick up on luge, he then tries to correct his English to something she will understand and tells her the pisser. Okay. Now, this is like being at dinner with Wyatt Earp. Nobody says luge and nobody says pisser. And quite frankly, nobody says barmaid. So Cowboy has a seat, and I'm so happy he's arrived. I mean, right, I was having a good time as it was, but he's bringing every dinner like this. If you guys ever go out, every dinner like this, you need somebody like Cowboy if you want to have any fun. So he then explains to me that they lost his bag, that his bag headed for Australia was in Austria. So he says, yeah, they must have just seen the nearest A and gave it a pitch, and here I am. I went to an ATM, and these are all the clothes that I could buy, and thankfully Reebok was here to throw in a pair of shoes. So, okay, we've got the wardrobe figured out. Then somewhere along the night, and we are with, I should mention, this is a sponsors dinner. And one of the gentlemen that represented the sponsors that we were there for, these women come walking in. And he looks over and he sees the woman who is on a date, and he says to the table, that's my ex-girlfriend. Well, we thought that he was joking. It's a very beautiful girl, and we thought that was a joke, like, oh yeah, that's my ex-girlfriend. Well, no, it turned out it was really his ex-girlfriend who's now on a date, and now he's in a really awkward scenario. So Cowboy decides the best way to deal with this is to steer right into it, so he again calls over the barmaid, points to the table and says, send them some sake. And when they ask who it's from, make sure you point to my friend here in the white shirt. So somewhere along the way, they have now spotted the guy, they've taken a look at the surroundings, and they have decided that it's best they go eat somewhere else. Now, I don't think that we did anything to make them feel uncomfortable. I think that that was social awkwardness on their own regard. But at any rate, they get up to leave. So the barmaid comes back over and explains to Donald that the table has left, of which we can see an empty table. They have left, but would like to know if he still wants her to send them the drinks. He says, wait, let me get this straight. You want to know if I want you to send drinks to an empty table? Like you're just going to go set the drinks over there and then charge me for them? And she says yes. And he puts his drink down and looks her in the eye and says, what would common sense tell you to do in this situation? She says, to cancel the drinks. And he says, follow common sense. So at some point in the evening, he smashed the table a couple of times. The person we were with got up and left, and he thought wasn't coming back, so he looked at the rest of the sponsors and says, hey, and we don't know them. I need to mention that. They're very nice. It was wonderful having dinner with them, but we don't know them. We're at a big round table, and even though we're all eating together, they're having their own conversations, and Donald and I are having our conversations. So at one point, he slams the table, gets everybody to look up and says, which one of you mother effers has the company credit card? And one guy kind of sheepishly raises his hand, and Donald says, great. And then he turns back to the barmaid, orders another drink and some cake. That was my night with Donald Cerrone. I have not left. Oh, did I mention, by the way, at some point, the opposing table was about 11 members of a local rugby team, and Donald threatened to fight them all? They recognized him and sat down. I had to go over and kind of smooth that one over. But at any rate,